The group rested for several hours. By the late afternoon, they once again departed, onwards to the mining town of Baerlon. Rand once again walked, and though they regularly traveled in silence, he also talked to his various companions at times. To his surprise, he found Mat and Perrin the hardest to talk to, perhaps even because they were his closest friends, yet did not know his secret. Despite that difficulty, he didn't think it was a good idea to tell them yet. In particular, Mat, who had not yet learned to accept his responsibility no matter how much he grumbled about it, might not think things through and make things more difficult, for example because he'd accidentally revealed something to someone else. On top of that, both boys had rather strong preconceived notions, not that Rand could really blame them considering just how common those notions were among the people of the Westlands. "Do you think that the Aes Sedai is speaking the truth?" Mat asked at one point. "That the Trollocs are after us three?" "I think so," Rand said. "Our farm and Perrin's family were attacked, and in the village, the smithy and your house. The other places they attacked seemed like distractions." "I don't trust her," Mat said. "Aes Sedai are bad news." "So are Trollocs," Rand pointed out. "She wants something from us," Mat said. "If there's one thing the stories agree on, it's that Aes Sedai always want something from you, and they'll use you for their own benefit." "My father trusts her," Rand said. "And he's actually been outside of Two Rivers before, unlike us." "You don't trust her, do you?" "I trust my father's judgment," Rand said, employing some Aes Sedai weaseling himself. "What about the Gleeman?" Tom had made clear on several occasions that he didn't trust Aes Sedai. For good reason. If Rand remembered correctly, they had gentled his nephew without following proper procedure, which had resulted in Tom being unable to say goodbye to him before his death. That was something that was very common. The One Power was addictive to use, and if one was severed from the One Power, or, as it was called in this age, gentled or stilled depending on gender, the former channeler would start showing withdrawal symptoms, which would lead to depression and, almost invariably, eventual suicide. Most channelers didn't last more than a year or two. "I don't know him well," Rand said. "He does seem to know what he's talking about, though. But for now, well, I've seen Moiraine fight the Trollocs, and that's enough for me to rather be with her than anywhere else." Mat was probably the most talkative of the bunch, often seeking distractions from their flight away from Emond's Field, while Perrin was pretty much the opposite. The smith's apprentice was very broad-shouldered, not just from his work but also by blood, though the two of course compounded, and it had taught him to be gentle and careful as to not harm others by accident. That extended to him probably being the most mature out of the three of them. At least the first time around, when Rand hadn't had his years as the Dragon Reborn and his many more years as Luz Therin to draw upon yet. He was often pensive, regularly asking Tam questions about the outside world, sometimes discussing things with Rand. Rand suspected that Perrin had noticed he was different, but the boy hadn't asked him about it, unlike Nynaeve and Egwene. That night, when they stopped again a few hours after dark, Egwene started brushing out her hair, undoing her braid like she had done the last time around. Rand remembered getting into a shouting match with her over it. Nynaeve, who hadn't been present when Egwene had made the decision the first time around, was the one bringing it up now. "What are you doing, Egwene?" brushing my hair out. "Why? You're not a child anymore." "Aes Sedai don't braid their hair," Egwene said. "Not unless they want to." Rand decided to step in. "You don't want to braid your hair, Egwene? I remember you were looking forward to it for years." She hesitated, and he moved closer to the two women. "I'm not saying you have to, of course. But if you wish, you can be both a woman from Emond's Field and an Aes Sedai. Don't Aes Sedai come from all countries and places?" Nynaeve gave Rand a thankful smile, not intervening further. Egwene said, brushing her hand through her hair. "Maybe I'll braid it again, later on. But I want to, well, I'm moving to something new, I guess. If I'm going to learn to be an Aes Sedai." "I think we all are," Rand said. "Even Nynaeve?" Egwene asked. Nynaeve hesitated. They hadn't explained particularly much about why she was coming along other than to watch over them, just like Tam. "I guess so," Rand said. "If we're really going all the way to Tar Valon, like Moiraine said, then Nynaeve can't remain the wisdom, right? She'd be gone for too long." "You'd really stay with us if you can't remain wisdom?" Egwene asked, turning to Nynaeve. There's another reason, Nynaeve admitted. But I can't say what it is. For a second, Rand thought Egwene was going to pry, but then she nodded. A few moments later, Moiraine walked up to them. "Gond, I need to ask you about something." Rand rose and said the girls goodbye, then followed Moiraine as they left the camp. "I thought now would be a good time for me to try and reproduce traveling," she said. "We can't travel from here," Rand said, "because for traveling, you need to be familiar with the place you're leaving, and if possible also the place you're going to. But we can practice skimming, which is very similar and doesn't have the same requirement." He brought himself to the edge of seizing Sedin, and like in Emor's field, Moiraine linked them and then gave him control over the circle. Rand needed a few seconds as well as his knowledge of Sedin's skimming and traveling weaves to remember how Sedar skimming worked. But then he could show Moiraine. It was very similar to traveling indeed, and opened a gateway in the same manner. Unlike traveling, however, it led to a dark place with a platform, which Moiraine immediately investigated, though without entering. "If we were to enter," Rand explained, "I could close the gateway and the platform would move to our destination, where another gateway would open. It's fast, but not quite as fast as traveling, not to mention you have the platform size. There's also an innate danger, because if you fall from the platform, you'll keep falling until you die for one reason or another." He closed the gateway again and then released the circle, allowing Moiraine to attempt the weave. "Keep your destination in mind," Rand advised as she practiced. After a few attempts, she once again linked with him, allowing him to show the example again, and they repeated that process several times. After some 10 minutes, a gateway suddenly opened in front of them. "This is amazing," Moiraine said. "We could go anywhere we want, pretty much instantaneously." "Travel time becomes trivial once you have traveling," Rand confirmed. "It completely changes the game." A smile played over his lips. "I have to admit, I can't wait to see the expressions on the faces of the High Lords of Tyr when I travel right into the heart of the stone and grab Callandor in front of their eyes. I'll have to make sure to plan it during the rite of guarding." "That sounds like something Mat could come up with," Moiraine noted as she closed the gateway again. "We might have need for him," Rand said, turning pensive. "Looking back, if there is one thing I forgot to do, it is to laugh. And we'll have to provide our own reasons for laughter, as the world won't do it for us. We are, after all, heading to Tamon Gaidon." They made their way back to the camp, where they listened to the last half of Tom's tale about one of the hunts for the Horn of Valerie before going to sleep. Some 2 hours after dawn, Lan woke them again, saying they had to leave soon if they wanted to reach Baerlon by nightfall. Rand quickly found himself walking near the rear, next to his father. Tam was riding Bella and had actually offered Rand to ride for a bit, which he had declined. Behind them, closing the ranks, were Moiraine and Egwene, the latter of which was still full with questions. "Why do men get the strongest powers?" Egwene asked. "Earth and fire." Moiraine laughed, and a smile played over Rand's face. "A very old question, with a very familiar answer. You think they are stronger? Is there a rock so hard that the wind and water cannot wear it away, a fire so strong that water cannot quench it or wind snuff it out?" "It was them, right?" Egwene asked. "The ones who tried to release the Dark One and the Forsaken, the male Aes Sedai, not the women." Moiraine remained silent, and Rand assumed she was considering how to answer the question. "It was, right?" Egwene asked, more hesitant now. "You want to hear me say that it was the evil men who caused the breaking of the world, and not the women that you wish to join," Moiraine said. "Yes, it was the men, but they were not evil. They were driven insane by the Dark One's taint on Sedin. Before that happened, they were people just like any other, just like you and me. And just like that, the Aes Sedai, alive today, are people like any other, brave or cowardly, strong or weak, friendly or cruel. What is important to remember is that using the one power does not change us." "I guess that's what I was worried about," Egwene said. Rand let himself fall back, and the two fell silent. What Egwene said, that the men tried to release the Dark One and the Forsaken, is that true? See, I once heard a merchant guard say that it wasn't that the men fought just as hard as the women, but that they disagreed on how to turn the war against the shadow around when they were losing. The guard said that the men tried to seal away the Dark One and his lieutenants, and that they succeeded, but that the Dark One struck back by making them go mad, and that's what caused the breaking of the world. That guard knew more about those times than even some Aes Sedai. But that doesn't fit what the stories say, Egwene protested. The legends speak of events that happened thousands of years ago, Moiraine lectured. Much of what they say has changed over time, in particular with the fear of male channelers who cause so much destruction during the breaking and sometimes afterwards. So how do you know what is true then? Egwene asked. Written texts do not change, Moiraine explained. What about the dragon? He was the first to go mad, right? The higher you rise, the deeper you can fall, Moiraine said. The dragon was the leader of the 100 companions that sealed the boar, the most powerful channeler to ever live. Dragonmount is a permanent reminder of the destruction he caused, visible from the White Tower in Tar Valon. The stories say he will one day return, Egwene said. Is that true? And will he cause more destruction then? Moiraine looked to Rand, who was walking next to her. The question was clear. How much should they reveal? He nodded slightly. Yes, he will return, Moiraine said. Do you know when? Rand asked. I do not think it will take much longer, Moiraine said. I have spent a lot of time reading about the prophecies regarding his return, the Caryathan cycle, but with what I've seen recently, in particular this last week, I don't know if we can even trust that the prophecies are reliable. Is that a bad thing? Rand asked. I think it's more likely to be a good thing, Moiraine said. We'll have to see. The conversation soon drifted to other topics, and Rand spent the day talking to several people, though he did not have time to relax in the way Mat did, practicing his juggling skills while sitting on horseback. As the sun lowered over the mountains of mist to the west, they crested a hill, and Baerlon came into view. Look at that, Mat exclaimed from the front of the party. A real city. Rand was glad he was again at the rear of the group, together with Tam and Moiraine, because he doubted he'd be able to act out such exuberance at what really wasn't more than a small town with a 20-feet-high wooden wall. Tom had no reason to keep his thoughts to himself. City, he mocked, though he said nothing more. Everyone, Moiraine called, and the people in front turned their horses to face her. When we are in Baerlon, we have to be more careful. Do not speak of Trollocs, the Dark One, or Aes Sedai. There may be people who are all too willing to assume the worst of us, or even dark friends. Lan and I also use different names. People know me as Lady Alice and Lan as Andra. Please remember that well. With that warning made, they continued their journey, and Moiraine turned to Rand, speaking softly. Is there anything you remember happening the last time around? Well, there's Min, of course. I imagine her visions might have changed, but I don't know for sure. We'll have to see. The last time I also suffered from channeling sickness at the worst possible moment, right when I met some white cloaks, but that won't happen this time. There are white cloaks in the city? Yes, Rand said. Or at least there were last time around. We'll just have to try and avoid them. The White Cloaks, or more formally Children of the Light, were a fanatical organization that opposed the Shadow and claimed that all Aes Sedai were dark friends. And of course, Rand knew their stated goals did not make them immune to having actual dark friends hiding among them. Their entrance to the town and the inn they were staying at, the Stag and Lion, just like last time, was uneventful until Moiraine asked whether Min was still there. I don't know what's wrong with her, Master Fitch, the innkeeper said. Ever since 4 days ago, she's been incredibly stressed. Refuses to tell anyone what's wrong, and I've seen her cry multiple times. Moiraine turned to the group. Go and take your baths. To Fitch, she said. I'd like to speak to her. Rand followed her, which she allowed without comment, and Fitch led them to what seemed to be a private room. Min was sitting at the table, her head in her hands. One thing that had not changed, at least, was her boyish dress style. She had always hated dresses and skirts. You can leave us, Moiraine told the innkeeper. On hearing the familiar voice, Min looked up. Moy, Lady Alice, thank the light you're here. Though Rand's heart went out to the girl he had fallen in love with, he held back, letting Moiraine take the lead. Are you all right? Moiraine asked. Min glanced at Rand. You don't need to hold back. Rand won't tell anyone anything. My viewings, Min said. A few days ago, they suddenly changed completely. That's never happened before. So many of the old images are gone, and other people have new ones now. And your images have changed completely. She turned to Rand. And you have a ton of them too. I suspected as much, Moiraine said as she sat down opposite Min. You know why this happened? Min asked, hopeful. Rand sat down next to her. That would be my fault, I suppose. Min frowned. How? You know how you basically view pieces of the pattern with your viewings? Rand asked. How do you know that? Min asked. She turned to Moiraine accusingly. Did you tell him? I did not, Moiraine said. I know about it, for the same reason that it's my fault they changed, Rand said. I changed the pattern itself. That sounds rather big-headed, Min noted. Rand couldn't help but smile at her familiar brusqueness. I'll explain, but perhaps you can first tell me what the images are that you see around me. A lot of things, Min said. A sword that isn't a sword, a banner with some kind of red and gold serpent with limbs, a strange symbol that looks like a flame of Tar Valor and a dragon's fang combined, a number of women, though I don't think I could recognize them even if I knew them, a darkness that shies back, and there's even more. I suspect the sword that is not a sword is Callandor. Have you heard of it? She shook her head. It is found in the Stone of Tyr, the ancient fortress, and no one can touch it except for the Dragon Reborn. According to scholars, drawing Callandor will be one of the clearest signs that whoever does it is the true Dragon Reborn and not a false dragon like the one in Ghealdan. So, why do I see it around you? Min asked. I'll explain a little further. First, Rand said, if you'll humor me. The banner, I think, displays a dragon. The background is white, isn't it? How did you know? Min exclaimed. I didn't tell you that. I've seen it before, Rand said. And last, the strange symbol you mentioned is the ancient symbol for the Aes Sedai. Back before the breaking of the world, when men and women created marvels with the one power in unity. White, the female half, and black, the male half, each tear-shaped and together making a circle. Min frowned. I can't make sense of it. I am the Dragon Reborn, Rand said. That's why you're seeing Callandor and the banner I will be using. The reason your visions changed is because I unwound the pattern by about 2 years and retained my memories from that time. And I'll be making different choices this time around. For example, one of the first things I intend to do is to cleanse the taint that makes male channelers go mad. I did that last time as well, but only after I'd already used Sedin for 1.5 years. That damage has been undone when I wound back time, and I'd rather not give it the chance to come back. I also suspect that is what the ancient Aes Sedai symbol stands for. That sounds, I would say, insane, but not insane in that way, Min said. Insane in the way that it's so ridiculous no one could make it up. And it does kind of explain why my visions changed when nothing could stop them from happening before. I know how it sounds, Rand said. I'm still coming to terms with it myself, but it has given me an amazing chance to anticipate events. For 2 years, I felt like I was always trying to catch up, but now I'm ahead. Did we know each other? Min asked. Yes, Rand said, dreading the next question. How well? She asked. Min, I want you to promise me something, namely that you will not make decisions because you feel you should. The previous pattern is gone, and no one, not you, not me, not anyone else, holds any obligations to it. Sure, Min said. Were we like lovers or something? Rand could deny it or dance around the subject, but that felt unfair to both the past Min that had loved him and this younger Min that didn't know him yet. Yes, he said instead. He blushed. How did we end up together? Rand thought back, both to his own memories and what he had learned when turning back the wheel. How much she had done for him, always being there as his rock, yet he couldn't repeat that out loud, didn't want to influence her decisions for the future. So instead, he focused on what she had gone through. It was quite the journey from your part, and you disliked a lot of it because you were often sent this way or that by Aes Sedai without much choice. Until you ended up with me, that is. He turned, pensive. Both women in the room seemed to be waiting until he had ordered his thoughts and spoke again. I don't know whether it's possible to avoid getting you involved this time, if that's even what you want. Your viewings are incredibly useful, and it might put you in danger from dark friends, or even Forsaken. But I also don't want to force you to go somewhere you don't want to go. He drummed his fingers on the table. What do you want, Min? Stay here? Leave? I'd like to see a bit of the world, she said slowly. Moiraine talked to me about my viewings when she was here last week, and I would like it if someone can make use of them too. I don't know, really. I've never been into girl stuff, and that makes it hard to find a place. I'm not really picturing myself as some housewife. How about this? Rand said, a plan forming. Right now, I don't really have anything to my name. I live on the road, and Moiraine pays for my expenses with Aes Sedai money. But once I announce myself as the Dragon Reborn, it won't take long before I have one, probably even several, places to live. You'll stay here for now, then once people know who I am, I'll come and get you, and you can live in Tear, or Camelin, or wherever you want, and you can help me by telling me what viewings you get from people. She nodded. I like that. And remember, Rand said, don't force yourself to try and love me or anything. I don't have any rights to you or anything just because of what the wheel wove the last time around. In fact, with how things are going right now, I wouldn't be surprised if I get another girlfriend. What if you get together with her, and then I come and fall in love with you again? I mean, I imagine the other me had a reason for liking you. Then we'll have to see. I actually had 2 other girlfriends as well, which you agreed to. Again, I'm not saying that you need to do anything a certain way, because that's how it happened last time. Yeah, Min agreed. She frowned. I'm used to me being the one that makes a conversation feel strange. Rand smiled. This is how it feels to be on the receiving end for a change. I remember the last time around you actually made me rather uncomfortable when we first talked. No, don't apologize. I was a naive farm boy afraid of my own shadow, not to mention I'd had a bad dream that made me even more jumpy. Moiraine looked up sharply at those words. Perhaps we've been talking for long enough. Min, I'm sure you understand you cannot tell anyone about what you heard. Min nodded. I want to ask you to take a look at the other people who are traveling with us and tell me, and Rand, what images you see around them. If you talk to them, keep in mind that not all of them know Rand's secrets yet. I can do that, Min said. They said their goodbyes, and Rand followed Moiraine into a corridor where she stopped halfway through and turned to him. You said you had a bad dream? Yes, Rand said. On the first night here, Baal-Samon. That's Ishamael, remember, not the Dark One. Invaded my dream and also Mat and Perrin's dreams. He didn't know which one of us was the Dragon Reborn, not for a while longer. I'm not sure if things will be different this time around, but I figured that my control over the dream might tip him off that I'm the one he's looking for. Keep me updated on what happens, Moiraine said. Though I suppose you might know more about the world of dreams than I do. Ishamael tends to use dream shards, Rand said. They are somewhat similar to the world of dreams, but made separately by a channeler, usually a dreamer, which gives them more control. We'll see what happens tonight, and I'll tell you tomorrow, as well as whether Mat and Perrin had a similar dream. Last time, we decided against telling you until we were in Camelin. Stubborn village boys, Moiraine muttered. Gland laughed. After their chat with Min, Rand, and Moiraine both enjoyed a good bath, followed by dinner with their full party and a good night's sleep. Well, for most people, it was a good night's sleep. Like last time, Rand, Mat, and Perrin were each visited by Baalzamon in their dreams. As Rand had predicted, Ishamael was not stupid, even though he had gone mad from the passing of time, and quickly realized that Rand was the boy he was looking for. At that point, Rand saw no need to keep up any pretense in the first place. On the contrary, the quicker he could draw Ishamael into a confrontation, the quicker he could get rid of him. He was the leader of the Forsaken, though to Rand's knowledge, not officially at this point, and the most powerful among them. And his freedom from the seals on the Dark One's prison made him a threat. Last time, when Rand had cleansed Sedin, he'd had the support of Aes Sedai, Wise Ones, the Channelers of the Ailele, and Ashaman, members of the Black Tower that he had founded as a male counterpart to the White Tower of the Aes Sedai. So when the Forsaken had arrived in an attempt to stop Rand, they had defended him and fended off their attacks. This time, Rand would not have that support, as he was not willing to wait with the cleansing for long enough to gather it. But that meant he needed to act before the other Forsaken were free from their prisons, which would be no more than a few months from the present time, and he needed to take Ishamael out of the equation first. In the morning, Rand and Moiraine once again met with Min, discussing the viewings she'd seen around their party, which meant that when Rand was finally ready to go out into the town, everyone else had already left. He decided to look for Perrin, Mat, Egwene, or Nynaeve. However, the first familiar face he encountered was someone else entirely, as he suddenly found himself eye to eye with Padan Fain. In an instant, Rand had seized Sedin, ignoring the appalling sensation of the taint, and bound and gagged the Dark Friend. He manipulated the weaves of air around Fain to make it look as if the former peddler was walking while he considered his options. The simplest would be to straight up kill the man. However, with the White Cloaks in the town, a death that could only be attributed to channeling would draw far too much attention. Though, gave him an idea. Rand slowly wove a mirror of mists around himself, gradually changing his appearance so he would not be recognized as he marched Padan Fain through the town. The man looked half mad with the rags he was currently wearing, and if Rand remembered correctly, he wasn't very coherent right now. Soon enough, he noticed a patrol of the White Cloaks in the distance. Perfect. He marched Fain in their direction. Then, when they were close, he conjured a fireball next to the Dark Friend, as if he were the one conjuring it instead, and threw it at the White Cloaks, making sure to not aim at a lethal spot. They might be fanatics, but Rand would not kill unless in self-defense, or if he knew his target was a Dark Friend. As expected, the White Cloaks responded immediately, seeing Fain as a male channeler, in their eyes making him both insane and the Dark Friend, which wasn't even inaccurate in this case. Screaming condemnations, all three White Cloaks drew their swords, including the one whose left arm had gotten burned, and attacked Fain, who was released from his bonds by Rand. Rand had half expected them to go for the kill. However, their commander had enough restraint that they only bound Fain, though the man was bleeding from several spots where their swords had cut him. And with so many witnesses who believed Fain had been channeling, it was likely that they would receive permission from the governor of the town to execute him. Or perhaps the governor would order the city guard to oversee the execution. That was good enough for Rand. Fain had been a major problem the last time around, for two different reasons. The first was that the Dark One had given him the ability to track Rand, Mat, and Perrin. And the second was that Fain had been touched by the evil from Shadar Logoth, which through him had managed to escape, and indeed even let it survive the cleansing of Sedin, which had destroyed the ruined city as a byproduct. Well, that was unlikely to happen again. Rand had no intention of going near the city except for the cleansing. He still didn't feel like running the risk. After all, while there was a measure of free choice, the very existence of Ta'veren and their ability to alter people's destinies by simply being nearby proved that the pattern did work towards certain goals. However, with the commotion caused by Rand's actions, he decided to make his way back to the inn, as he figured that those who knew he was the Dragon Reborn might get worried if news got around that a male channeler had been arrested for attacking Children of the Light. No matter that Rand was powerful enough that he could blow anyone, both the town guard and the entire regiment of children camping nearby, to pieces without having to risk his skin. That evening, they enjoyed Tom's storytelling and the dances in the common room. However, When they got ready to go to bed, Rand first met up with Moiraine to teach her actual traveling, which required familiarity with the place of departure. Unlike last time, no Midral appeared, meaning there was no rushed departure in the middle of the night. However, once they did leave the next morning, Rand found himself worried that they might have lost the advantage they had gained by not being tracked in exchange for a calmer journey, something he shared with Moiraine and the others who knew his secret. At least it had given Lan the time to buy 2 more horses, so they were all on horseback for the journey east to Whitebridge. For 3 days, there was no sign of Trollocs, and Rand was almost beginning to believe that they would have a quiet journey to Caemlyn when a Trolloc horn sounded behind them, certainly no more than 10 miles away. They had just finished their break and had been about to continue their journey. Lan and Moiraine immediately had an unspoken conversation, after which the warder announced he would scout out their enemy while the rest of the group would travel on ahead. Rand fell back so he could speak to Moiraine without being overheard. In front of him rode Tam and Nynaeve, with everyone else further ahead. "How close are we to Shadar Logoth?" he asked. Moiraine looked surprised. "You want to go there?" "No," Rand replied. "In fact, I want to avoid going there, which is what we did last time." Mat took a dagger along, and not only did it almost kill him, it also freed the evil currently trapped inside the city's walls. Moiraine nodded. "No, Shadar Logoth then. To answer your question, it is within range for us to reach by nightfall. Do you remember how many Trollocs there are?" "No," Rand said. "However, I do remember we fought one fist, which we managed only because Lan killed the Fade, and then you delayed several more fists with some taxing weaves." "Then that means that if we cannot go to Shadar Logoth, even in the case of an emergency, we might need your channeling," Moiraine said. "I know," Rand replied. "If that is how things must be, then I'll do it." "The wheel weaves as the wheel wheels," Moiraine said, making Rand chuckle. "You know, I can hardly believe it took this long for you to say that." "I may have been too surprised by the weavings of the wheel myself recently," Moiraine noted. "Glad to be of service," Rand teased. Considering even Min's viewings changed, though, was it really a weaving of the wheel? Horns sounded again, closer this time. "An interesting philosophical discussion," Moiraine said, "that I don't think we have time for." Nynaeve fell back. "Can't we go faster? The horns are getting closer." "And why are they letting us know they are here?" Moiraine asked. "Perhaps so. We will hurry on without thinking of what might be ahead." Lan returned soon after, saying there were at least 3 fists behind them and that they would catch up in an hour. As Moiraine wondered why they were being driven onward, horns sounded again in the west, though this time more horns answered in the east. There seemed to be a note of triumph to them. "What do we do now?" Nynaeve demanded. "There is a place where the Trollocs won't go," Lan said. "No," Rand replied. "It's too dangerous." "Then I don't think we can escape them," the warder noted. "As Moiraine just told me, the wheel weaves as the wheel wheels." "You would reveal your abilities then?" Lan asked. "I'd rather do that than spend another night in Shadar Logoth." "We will take a hilltop then and see whether we can hold." "If need be, how many fists can you hold off while surrounded?" "Dozens," Rand replied. "By yourself?" Moiraine gasped. "Yes." Mat fell back. "What's going on?" he wanted to know. "We're going to make a stand," Lan said, pointing towards a nearby hill before calling out for everyone to follow him there. "A stand?" Mat asked. "We can't escape them." "No," Moiraine said. "How many Trollocs are there?" Mat asked, fearful. "Not more than we can handle," Moiraine replied, "though they may believe otherwise." "Stay on your horses," Lan ordered as they waited on the hill. Though there were patches of forest around them, the hill itself was exposed, giving them an overview of the coming battlefield. One of the advantages Trollocs have is their height. By sitting on horseback, you can negate that. With the lack of experience from some of you, that may be vital. Lan and Tam had been teaching Mat and Perrin, but there was only so much you could pick up in a week's worth of evening lessons, each after a day of riding. A first fist of Trollocs arrived and Mat raised his bow, but Lan told him to stand down when the Trollocs did not approach. "Wait," until they are closer. But they're just going to wait until the others arrive, Mat argued. And if we attack now, we exhaust ourselves while giving up our greatest advantage, which is the high ground. Can we fight, however many fists there are? Perrin asked, looking at Moiraine. Yes, she replied. With the 9 of us, Tom asked, loading his pipe. And only one Aes Sedai and one girl who learned about the One Power last week. We might as well say our goodbyes right now. I have an engril, Moiraine said, pulling the object out of her cloak. It enhances how much of the One Power I can tap into. Tom scoffed, but did not reply. Mat, Perrin, and Egwene looked fearful. 6 more fists arrived, completely surrounding the hill. 700 Trollocs, led by 7 Mirvdral. A horn sounded, 6 others replying immediately, and the Trollocs started pushing up the hill. I can't do this, Moiraine said calmly. What? Mat exclaimed as Rand seized Sidin. He wove earth, air, and fire, conjuring 6 10-feet-tall pillars of fire, no thicker than a man's forearm, then added another thread of air, exploding the blossoms of fire and wreaking destruction in a large area. Most of the Trollocs and Mirvdral assaulting the hill died immediately, but Rand did not pause, this time weaving earth and fire as his fingers danced, and each fingertip shot 10 arrows, so quick it seemed as if they were blinking, targeting Trollocs all around them. Wherever a Trolloc got hit, the arrow would burn a large hole, continuing onward to hit the next. Within seconds, all Shadowspawn lay dead, and Rand released Sedin again. Blood and bloody ashes, what was that? Mat exclaimed, the first to find his voice. Even Moiraine looked awed, to say nothing of the rest of them. Tom was shocked. Perrin looked like he had no clue what to think, and Egwene seemed to have realized what was going on, yet utterly confused as to how. Moiraine, Rand said, taking charge. Perhaps you could reveal what brought you to the 2 rivers in the first place. She nodded, gathering herself and settling into that trademark serene Aes Sedai look. That is a story that started 20 years ago, during the last days of the Isle War, while the Battle of the Shining Walls took place outside Tar Valon. I wasn't accepted at the time, though I was close to obtaining the shawl and becoming a full Aes Sedai. I was attending to Tamara Ospenya, the Amerlin's seat at the time, the leader of the Aes Sedai. Her keeper of the chronicles, Gitara Moroso, was also present and had the talent of foretelling. At the crack of dawn, hundreds of horns suddenly sounded. As we later learned, the Aiel had succeeded in their goal of killing King Lamon for his sin of cutting down Avendor Aldera. However, that soon became a footnote, as Gitara spoke the words I will never forget. He is born again. I feel him. The dragon takes his first breath on the slope of Dragonmount. He is coming! She died immediately after giving this prophecy, Moiraine said morosely. Tamara ordered me and the one other accepted present to speak of this to no one. And I know there are many tales, myths, and folklore about the Dragon Reborn and his coming, but the truth is this. He will stand against the shadow at Tamon Gaidon, the last battle, and lead the light. In this duality, the prophecy foretells both our doom and our savior. In the next weeks, Tamara had a number of secret meetings with a few other Aes Sedai, and I was also raised to the position of Aes Sedai myself. Then, Tamara suddenly died, supposedly in her sleep. The other Aes Sedai she had meetings with died soon after, for one reason or another. By the time a year had passed, my friend and I were the only 2 Aes Sedai alive who knew of the prophecy and were not sworn to the dark. An Aes Sedai admitting to the existence of the Black Ajar, even indirectly, Tom interrupted. Now I've heard everything. It is hard to deny their existence if you have almost been murdered by a Black Sister, Moiraine said testily before continuing her story. I dedicated myself to looking for the Dragon Reborn, searching all throughout the world. Recently, I found leads that pointed towards 2 rivers, one of the only places I had not visited yet. I knew the Dark One's servants were also looking for the dragon, and I feared I might not arrive in time. And that's where I'll take over, Rand said. The story I am about to tell you may have some familiarity to you at first, but it is not the same. Please bear with me. Moiraine arrived in 2 rivers. We were attacked by Trollocs, and Mat, Perrin, Egwene and I left together with her and Lan, Tom joining us for our journey as well. In Baerlon, we were joined by Nynaeve, who had intended to take us back to Emon's field, but instead joined us. We got split up, found each other again, fought Shadowspawn like today, and so on. But eventually it became clear to Moiraine that I was the one she had been looking for. I tried to deny it, but as Moiraine likes to say, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. I drew Callandor. I conquered and ruled. I cleansed Sedin of the taint, played politics. But then, when I was using an extraordinary amount of the One power, more than anyone has ever drawn in the past, I unwound the wheel by accident. Suddenly, I found myself back in Emond's field, the day before Beltane, but with my memories of everything that had been undone remaining. You might have noticed that I've changed, perhaps become more confident, more willing than you to trust an Aes Sedai. This is why. Tom sucked his pipe. That is the most insane story I have ever heard. And the strangest part is, after what I just saw, I have no choice but to believe you. That false dragon in Ghealdan, Loghain, is powerful, but there is no way even he could reproduce this. He can, actually, Rand said. I've seen him do it. He just doesn't have the necessary education at this point. Well, that is very reassuring, Tom muttered around his pipe. Is that why you've been more distant? Perrin asked hesitantly. I thought it was because everything that happened that night, with you out there fighting the Trollocs. Yes, Rand said. I knew I had to tell you, Mat and Egwene at some point, but I wasn't certain how to go about it. After all, we were raised with quite a few prejudices and stories about male channelers and such. Mat scoffed. You're still Rand, aren't you? Yes, that's all I need. Rand laughed. Thank you, Mat. I suppose I could use some reassurance. Is that why you told that story that was supposedly from a merchant's guard? Egwene asked. Yes, Rand replied. I heard what you and Moiraine were talking about, and I wanted to put your mind at rest. But, Egwene seemed very hesitant. Won't you, still go mad? Only so long as Sedin remains tainted, Rand said. Remember the things I just told you. Last time, I cleansed it and made it safe to use again. This time around, I plan to not only do so again, but much earlier, before midsummer for sure. A full 1.5 years earlier than last time. And when I unwound the pattern, what madness I did have seems to have disappeared, giving me a clean slate. I try to avoid using it whenever possible, and if Moiraine's power suffices, but she doesn't know the weaves required, I link with her and perform it instead. Aren't Sedin and Sedar separate? Egwene asked. How could you use Moiraine's power? Channelers can link with each other, combining their power. I have memories from the Age of Legends, including how to work with Sedar. I channel only a minuscule amount of Sedin, and therefore a minuscule amount of Taint, and use Sedar to accomplish my goals. Is that what you did just now? Mat asked. No, Rand said. Moiraine doesn't have the power to do this, even if she knew the weaves. This was all me. So, who already knew? Perrin asked. You obviously told Moiraine, but... Lan was told by Moiraine, and I also told my father and Nynaeve already, Rand said. In fact, the real reason Nynaeve has come with us is because I requested her help. How can she help? Egwene asked. Actually, why did Mat and Perrin have to come along if you already knew that the Trollocs were after you specifically? I knew the Trollocs were after me specifically, Rand said, but they didn't know who they were looking for. Ishamael probably knows by now, but it wouldn't be too much longer until he figured it out anyway. And besides, Mat and Perrin, just like you and Nynaeve, have their own parts to play in these coming years. How that has changed with what I've done, I don't know, though there are differences already. As for Nynaeve, I'll leave it to her whether she wants to reveal that. Everyone turned to the wisdom, who hesitated before answering. Apparently, I'm a channeler too. Don't undersell yourself, Nynaeve, Rand said. Nynaeve is, right now, the strongest female channeler between the spine of the world and the Aryth Ocean. Strong enough to match some of the Forsaken. She blushed at Rand's words. Tom, Rand said, I have a specific request for you. I will need people around me that can play the game of houses and can play it well. I am but a lowly gleeman, Tom said. Rand snorted. So, you always say. Besides, he said, smirking, I'm sure you could write some great songs about the events that are going to happen in the near future. That is true, Tom said pensively. Court bound to the Dragon Reborn does have a certain flair to it, I suppose. You'll have the title as soon as I have a court, Rand said. A court? Mat muttered. Rand laughed. No one is going to force you to stay at a court, Mat. In fact, I'd say you have better things to do than wearing fancy clothing and insulting people while... Actually, insulting people while making them think you're complimenting them sounds right up your alley, but that aside, I'm sure we'll find something you enjoy. Or failing that, the pattern will. You sound like her, he said, gesturing to Moiraine. Well, she did spend quite a lot of time teaching me about the world. But perhaps we should find ourselves a place to camp for the night that doesn't smell of burned Trolloc. Lan led the way back to the road and then down to the east until they had made some distance from the slaughter. It couldn't really be called a battle, and dismounted for the night. Do you still want to travel to Camelin? Moiraine asked. Yes, Rand said. I definitely want to meet Elaine and Loyal. Loyal is an Ogier who'll be staying at the Queen's Blessing Inn around the time Loghain is paraded through Camelin, and he became a dear friend. And who is Elaine? Egwene asked. The daughter heir of Andor, Rand replied. The future queen. She's also a strong channeler, similar in strength to you. You'll be novices in the White Tower together. Wait, weren't we supposed to travel to Camelin and then Tavalon no matter what? Mat asked. Yes, Rand said. However, I do know how to travel. To make a gateway with the one power that allows people to move from one place to another, even on the other side of the world. So you're saying we could skip all this riding? Mat demanded. Not without tipping off Baerlon that I know far more than I am supposed to. Traveling has been lost since the breaking of the world. I would prefer he underestimates me when we fight. But my other reasons for avoiding it have been invalidated to one degree or another. It's something to consider. After having dinner together, Egwene made her way over to Rand and sat down next to him. He gave her a smile by the light of the campfire. Rand had refused to continue going without fire with their pursuers dead, and him able to take care of any new threats anyway. Did we get together? Egwene asked haltingly, too soft for others to hear. No, Rand said. We grew apart, mostly because it took me a rather long time to accept that you were going to become an Aes Sedai. I hated the very thought of it at first. But you don't hate it anymore, right? Egwene asked, some uncertainty in her voice. No, I don't. And, in fact, I'm happy for you. You'll make a great Aes Sedai, Egwene. And I might even take the time to teach you a few things that Moiraine doesn't know during these coming days or weeks. But we still can't get together then, can we? Egwene asked, disappointment shining through her voice. Aes Sedai don't marry. We're at the turning of an age, Rand said. A lot of things are about to change. In the Age of Legends, it was normal for Aes Sedai to marry. Perhaps in the Fourth Age it will once again be normal. He shifted a little, so she could lean against him. Do you want us to get together? I don't know, Egwene said. I think so, but I don't know if you had someone else, perhaps. And I don't want to take that away from you either. I had a rather unusual relationship, Rand said. You remember Min from Baerlon? The girl you and Moiraine talked to that first evening? That's the one. I couldn't choose between her Elaine and an Isle woman named Avienda, and then they decided that I wasn't going to choose at all, and they'd just share me instead. Egwene gave a humorless chuckle. So I have to compete with not one, but 3 women. Ones that I don't even know yet? We could just try things out a bit first, Rand proposed. See if we enjoy being together. I'm not going to seriously meet any of them for a while longer anyway, so we'll see what happens later on. She turned to face him with her large brown eyes. I'd like that. Rand put his hand on her head to hold her steady, then slowly closed the distance between them and gave her a light kiss on the lips. As he released her, moments later, she blushed bright scarlet. Good night, Egwene. The next morning, the possibility of traveling once again came up. No, Rand said, having thought about it more. Being on the road allows Perrin, Mat, and Egwene to train without being forced into dangerous situations, and there's actually another reason why we need to stay in the area. He turned to Lan and Moiraine. Do you remember Elias? They both nodded. He should be somewhere on the other side of the river from Shadar Logoth, Rand said. And we're going to need him. Lan, is it possible for you to cross the Arenal, find him, then meet us east of Whitebridge? I should be able to, Lan said. What do I tell him to convince him to come with me? Tell him that you have reason to assume you've found someone like him. Moraine's eyes widened. Now that is a surprise. We are full of surprises, Moiraine. What are you talking about? Mat asked. Something that I expect will happen soon, Rand said. Once it does, I think Moiraine will do a better job explaining it than I can. How would Lan find us again? Nynaeve asked. The water bond tells him Moraine's approximate location, Rand replied. I might as well leave right now then, Lan said. I'm sure you have everything in hand. Tam, don't forget to put the boys through their lessons. He readied his horse, then rode off to the north, straight through the hills, while the rest of the party went east along the road to Whitebridge. That day, Rand made sure to ride next to Mat and Perrin, as he felt he hadn't spent enough time with either of his best friends recently, his secret forcing them apart. Wasn't there something with a male channeler in Baerlon attacking the White Cloaks? Perrin asked. Were you involved there, Rand? He got executed, right? Yes, he did, Rand said. He wasn't a channeler, but he was a dark friend, and I figured framing him so that the White Cloaks would take care of him was more convenient than killing him, and perhaps drawing the attention of the White Cloaks to ourselves instead. The Dark One had given him the ability to find us anywhere, so he could become very inconvenient, and to make matters worse, he was touched by the evil of Shadar Logoth. What is this Shadar Logoth? Mat asked. I've heard it mentioned several times. It's the remains of Aridhol, Rand said. Though they were originally valiant fighters against the Shadow in the Trolloc Wars, they became so paranoid that they trusted no one, and in fact formed an evil of their own, which has since then been trapped in the ruins of the city. At night, mists come out that kill and consume anyone they touch. And if you want the poetic version, you'd have to ask Moiraine. Speaking of, maybe I should ask her to tell the story of Manetheren, the last time emotions ran a little higher after the attack at home, and she told the story in order to calm people down, but this time that wasn't needed. What's that about? Mat asked. Or rather, your ancestors, Rand said. I don't have Two Rivers ancestors, of course. Wait, what do you mean? Perrin interrupted. Rand slapped his forehead. I completely forgot that you didn't know that. My parents are Aiel, but my mother was dying when Tam came across her, and he decided to take me in as his own. I see him as my father, though, even if by blood he's not. Anyway, regarding Manetheren, it was a nation with its capital in the mountains near Two Rivers. They were known for having the bravest armies in the Trolloc Wars, but they were eventually defeated by an enormous Trolloc invasion. However, they then took all those Trollocs with them. Again, if you want to hear the poetic version, you'll have to ask Moiraine. I'm no storyteller. It is a story worth hearing, though. You know, I'm glad we're finally talking again for real, Rand, Mat said. You've been a bit distant since we left. Rand nodded. I found it hard to talk to either of you, knowing I had changed and unable to explain why. In hindsight, perhaps I shouldn't have worried so much and just told you immediately. Well, no changes there, Mat laughed. You've always been the one to worry too much. So what are you planning on doing first? Perrin asked. Well, As I mentioned already, I want to travel to Camelin, Rand said. From Whitebridge onward, we'll travel through more populated areas, by the way, so we will actually be able to sleep in inns then. After that, I mean to fight Ba'arzamon. That's Ishamael, not the Dark One himself, no matter what he wants people to believe, and hopefully kill him. 2 more Forsaken are likely to be freed a little earlier than the rest, due to not being sealed away perfectly. If we can get rid of those 2, that will be perfect, because then no one is able to interrupt while I'm cleansing said inn. I'm sorry, Mat spoke up. You're saying the Forsaken are going to be freed? Yes, Rand said. In all honesty, that probably sounds scarier than it is. They are just people who happen to be powerful channelers, and, as a rule of thumb, don't have too many morals. But many of them are ruled by their vices, which makes them predictable. And what makes them even more predictable is that I know nearly all the identities they took on, so I can start taking them out as soon as they appear, before they have a chance to establish themselves. You can take them out? Mat asked. I am stronger than any of them, except Ishamael, who matches me in strength, Rand said. You saw it yesterday. Mat shivered. Please don't take too long with that cleansing business. It makes me uncomfortable to think about. I wasn't planning on waiting, Rand said. Turning back the wheel undid what the taint did to me, but I wasn't truly sane anymore, for all that I managed to keep somewhat of a lid on things. He grimaced as he thought back to how he had almost killed Tam before he realized what he had been about to do, just because Tam had been manipulated into visiting by someone else. And what will you do after the cleansing? Perrin asked. I'll go to Tyr, Rand said. That's where Callandor is found, which scholars consider one of the clearest signs of the true Dragon Reborn returning, so it will give me a lot of legitimacy to have it. Then, I'll be traveling to the White Tower to negotiate an alliance with the Amelin seat and the Aes Sedai. After that, I am not sure yet, but I'll likely be consolidating my power in Tyr, keeping an eye out for other Forsaken returning, and at some point, I'll probably travel to the Aiel Waste. Why? Because the Aiel also have prophecies about me, and they were some of my greatest allies, Rand said. Speaking of, I should probably correct a few misconceptions about them. There is little truth to the stories we heard as kids about the Aiel. They're a very honorable people, and their entire society is based around a system of honor called Jido. It's hard to explain how it works, you just have to learn it. But it's not as if they expect strangers to adhere to it, so you don't need to worry. Also, they don't look much like the stories say. Most have blonde or red hair, light skin and blue, gray or green eyes, and they tend to be very tall. Kind of like me, my birth parents are Aiel after all. So, what about us in the meanwhile? Perrin asked. I mean, I want to help, but I feel like I don't know anything compared to you. I want to teach both of you various things, Rand said. For you, Perrin, it has to do with why I sent Lan away. Again, I'll let Moiraine explain things when it becomes relevant, though you don't need to be worried. I'm also hoping that you can become something of an ambassador for me, basically taking care of things that I don't have time for, yet I can't just send anyone to fix. For you, Mat, I intend to start covering battle tactics, and I recently came up with a way to do so. The last time around, you showed amazing aptitude as a general, and for all that I bet you're about to complain you don't want responsibility, you loved it. I don't like being told what to do, Mat grumbled. That's why I'm putting you in charge, Rand said. But you do need to learn enough first. And considering I don't have an army yet, I'll have to teach you in another way. At night, while sleeping, I will pull you into a so-called dream shard, and then I'll show you battles that I'm familiar with and discuss their tactics with you. Please tell me that's not like that dream back in Baerlon, Mat said with a shiver. Yes and no, Rand said. While it's the same trick, I'm not going to scare you or anything. In fact, you might even become better at controlling your dreams as a side effect, which would make it easier to ward off Ishamael. Not that I think he'll invade your dreams again. He knows I'm the one he's looking for, so he'll focus on me. I wouldn't mind if you teach me how to keep him out too, Perrin said. You will learn that as well when Lan returns, Rand said. In fact, I might start teaching both you and Egwene about the Teleran Riod then, as you'll both have the talent to go there. What's that? Perrin asked. It's the old Tun name for the world of dreams, Rand said, which, as the name implies, is a place some people can go when they dream. Most dreams aren't there, though, and most people that visit only do so extremely briefly. The world of dreams can be a very dangerous place, because if you get injured there, the injury carries over to the waking world. However, it can also be used to gather information, meet people, or, for dreamers, it's a place where they can receive visions about what the future may hold. The conversation started drifting away to lighter topics, and Rand smiled. It had been too long. In his memory, at least, since the three of them had been together. The last time might have been as long ago as the stone, just after he'd first taken up Callandor. He wasn't sure. A very long time ago, at least. The day before they reached Whitebridge, Moiraine took Nynaeve apart for the first time to gauge her current channeling capabilities. Rand sat on the side, paying attention but not interfering for the moment. Usually, when a girl or a boy has the spark, the innate ability to start channeling, they will draw on the one power occasionally in a time of great need, Moiraine said. If what Rand has told me about you is correct, in your case it was usually because you were trying to heal someone. You might remember occasionally having a mysterious brief illness where you're cold, feverish, and might not quite be able to think straight. It appeared suddenly, lasted for a few hours, and then disappeared just as quickly again. I do remember that, Nynaeve said in surprise. I was suddenly shaking, one moment cold, then burning. It was gone in a few hours. It happened a week after I'd watched over Egwene when she had breakbone fever. Mistress Baerlon was the wisdom back then, and she was teaching me. I always thought she believed I'd given Egwene something without telling her. It's called channeling sickness, Moiraine said. The first time you channel, it happens about 10 days after you channeled. Every next time, it happens closer to when you channeled, until at one point it occurs nearly immediately. Then, it disappears. However, that's where the danger starts for an untrained channeler. Most do not learn to control their powers. In fact, most people don't even realize they are channeling. 3/4 of these women die. It's a horrible, painful death, with convulsions and screaming. It takes days, and once it has started, all the Aes Sedai in Baerlon together won't be able to stop it. You, however, are a wilder, meaning you were lucky enough to learn how to safely channel the one power, albeit unconsciously. The issue is that you developed a block of some sort in doing so, a requirement that needs to be met before you can draw on Sedar. It can sometimes take months of effort to break a block. However, in the meanwhile, we can try to work around it, and if nothing else, you can at least learn how to see weaves. Moiraine started going through a number of simple exercises, explaining that they were meant to help novices see threads and learn to recognize when a woman was channeling. It doesn't work, Nynaeve complained. I don't see anything. Patience, Moiraine said. You need to be calm to embrace Sedar and channel its power. Nynaeve muttered angrily, but gave it another try and attempted to center herself again, continuing the exercise Moiraine was walking her through. She didn't comment on her struggles again, but from the tugging on her braid, it was clear she was still getting worked up from her failures. Eventually, Moiraine pointed out her visible frustration and suggested that they go through some meditation exercises. It's not working, Nynaeve exclaimed. She spluttered. You did it, Moiraine said, completely surprised. Indeed, the familiar goosebumps appeared on Rand's skin. Did what? Nynaeve asked, irritated. Embrace Sedar, Moiraine said. I did. The anger faded away, and now it's gone again, Moiraine noted. Toi, you weren't exactly calm. Rand stood up and moved closer to the pair. It's Nynaeve's block, he said. She needs to be angry to channel. That seemed to wind her up again, if the tugging on her braid was any indication. And that was quite possibly the most obvious tell for someone's mood that Rand had ever seen in any person. However, she held her tongue. It is? Moiraine asked. That's highly unusual. But we'll have to work with what the wheel provides, at least until we can break your block. And how would that happen? Nynaeve asked. Usually, shock, Moiraine said. You need to channel without meeting the requirements of your block just the one time, and it'll be gone forever. Do you know how I broke it last time? She asked, turning to Rand. He grimaced. You almost drowned after being attacked by a Forsaken. Not exactly a controlled environment, and a situation I hope you won't find yourself in this time. Oh, Nynaeve said. A brief pause. Do you know any other way to get through it? You remember the Age of Legends, don't you? If there is something, I don't know it, Rand admitted. But while I was considered one of the most knowledgeable men alive back then, I still knew only a fraction of what there is to know. Perhaps one of the Forsaken might know something, but unless I'd managed to subvert one away from the shadow, that's not going to be of much use. Is that possible? Nynaeve asked, disbelieving. Honestly, I've never really considered that, Rand said. The previous time around, Lanfear pretty much forced Asmodean to teach me to use Sedin, and I got the idea that he kinda made peace with that at some point, until he vanished without a trace, presumably killed by another Forsaken. Why would Lanfear do that? Moiraine asked. Rand was impressed by how unfazed she was at the mention of a Forsaken helping Rand out. It's a complicated story, but the short of it is that she has always been somewhat obsessed with me, even back in the Age of Legends. This was one of her attempts to get on my good side. I suppose she might be the most likely Forsaken to turn away from the Dark One. She even offered to do that for me, in fact, though that offer was, of course, tainted with her desire for power. Rand fell silent as he pondered his relationship with her, both in the Age of Legends and in the current, Third Age. Didn't you mention I killed her? Moiraine asked. You did, Rand said. When I slept with Avienda, she didn't exactly take the news well. Oh, is that? Nynaeve asked. An Isle-wise one apprentice, Rand said. One of my girlfriends in the previous timeline. One of? Nynaeve demanded. Rand chuckled, holding his hands up defensively. It was their idea, not mine. And the other you has already told me what you thought of it, he said somewhat teasingly. Nynaeve grumbled, but with no real heat. Rand was a little impressed with how much leeway she was giving him. Probably due to his more mature outlook, he figured.